Hey, this is Sharif Yunus here with another episode of the Golden Hour, joined by Dr. Kevin Majors. Kevin, thanks for joining us again.
Hey, Sharif, great to be here.
Well, Kevin, I wanted to follow up on last week's episode on brain fog, where we covered a number of ways to kind of make ourselves resilient to brain fog. But I thought another question that kind of came up in the past week was, what do we do in the moment that we find ourselves with brain fog? Are there any strategies that we can follow or ideals that we can aim for to kind of mitigate brain fog in that moment? What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And just thinking about that, you could ask yourself, what are the most common strategies people do in fact use? So if
Hmm.
they're kind of feeling brain fog setting in. Um,
Nap, probably.
yeah, I think
Take a
probably
nap.
probably people take a nap, or I think they have coffee or some kind of caffeine or an energy drink.
Yeah.
And so you can have sleep strategies or you can have chemical strategies. I think both of those are probably mistaken. So I think that um, you don't want to rob from tonight's sleep, with a nap, unless you're sick or there's some special reason. Or sometimes you have young children and they're waking up throughout the night, and there's some. So there could be special reasons, or you're a doctor and your post call. Okay, fine. But in general, I think you want to protect the night's sleep because that's going to ensure better energy the whole next day. The other thing is caffeine has a half life, of some small number of hours, let's say 4 to 6, but then it has a quarter life that is much longer than that, and can actually. In the quarter life means, like if you were to have caffeine at noon, how much caffeine is still in your blood at like midnight? And not to get too exact, but the quarter life is something like 10 to 12 hours. It lasts a lot longer, so you still have a quarter of the amount of coffee you drank in you, like this much time later. So caffeine can also have long lasting effects and steal from sleep at night. And also, that what can happen is when people rely on caffeine for brain fog, they're living cup to cup. So like this, each is like, and then they have these waves. Afterwards, they feel like they have high energy, and then it goes down, 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 down. Then they have another cup, and it goes up. They're just living on these waves. Um, I think that when people, if they do an experiment, say they go like a week or 2 or 3 with no caffeine, it's probably not a bad idea to do that once a year or something, at least, just to see what your baseline's like. People tend to experience that they're even in the amount of energy they have all throughout the day, and generally a bit higher as an average than they were before. I don't know. Does that fit with your experience?
That's my experience. Yeah, I stopped drinking coffee. I don't know, was it 6 months ago or a year ago or something? And yeah, I found that more and more in the afternoons, I would want coffee. And then the
Yeah.
more I gave into that, the more then that would be a kind of vicious cycle. I don't know if vicious cycle is the exact
Because it's
right
kinda
term.
self-limited. Coffee is pretty benign, and as long as you're
Hmm.
able to sleep at night, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
I
But,
do
but
think, well,
then,
there can be other effects of it too. I think it's just interesting to every once in a while, I think, to do what you did and just go off it for a while.
mhm. And then it was a little bit tough for the first couple days, but then it evened out and I haven't really had coffee since. So
Yeah.
I'm happy with my decision.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've been off for a couple months, and, at first, yeah, I have to say, like, yeah, maybe there's a couple days where you feel like you're dragging a bit, but then after that, it was just positive. And at some point, I'll go back to having it and stuff. It's just nice to do as an experiment and see what's this like going without it. But certainly hasn't been. So I just don't think that coffee is necessarily the best answer to brain fog. And I don't think in general external strategies are the best for meeting internal challenges. It seems to me that we need an internal strategy. So, like, what is the thing that you can practice doing with your mind that actually helps to raise the intensity level? And so it seems to me that if you want more intensity, in work, there are these strategies you can use beforehand, or you could say proactive strategies and reactive strategies that allow you to really maintain high intensity.
Hmm. So proactive and reactive. Where'd you get that from?
I got it from Todd Brave. It's the dual mechanism of cognitive control model, but it just came out in the journal of, I think it was Cognitive Neuroscience. But he and his team, they're at Washington University in St. Louis, uh, and they just had a great paper on the research they've done that's actually kind of shown very elegantly in using fMRIs, seeing what's happening in people's brains, when they're trying to do tasks that required sustained attention, or what I would call, I think that's what I call intensity. Intensity is really sustained focus, sustained attention, where you have some kind of traction in the task at hand. Uh, and what this model is about is that there are some things that you can set up the task in advance, to kind of see the lay of the land and what's the end goal you're aiming for and the steps to get there. Those strategies then have an effect on sustaining your ability to attend. They basically give you intensity. Now, that kind of proactive strategy is what in optimal work we always call order. But the skill or the virtue of order is being able to, order kind of receives this clear view of the end you're trying to attain, and then breaks it down into steps that can be put in order to best attain that end. And so the essential feature, of order, we've always said in optimal work, is its ability to break things down into steps so that it can serve up the next step, the first step to your task attention, and you can intensely engage that step. So, like, the work of order is done when you've finally arrived at what is the next step for me to do right now. And then you have something to intensely engage. So, order leads to intensity. And that's the proactive strategy. The reactive strategy is how you are course correcting all along to make sure you're not going off in the wrong direction. And that's what we at Optimal Work always talk about, is constancy. So constancy's work begins when the step you're on is done. And now you're going to need a next step. And constancy chooses the right one, the one ideally order set in the beginning. But constancy is always course correcting to the goal to make sure this is the best way to achieve it. So so constancy is um, this ability to maintain a momentum towards the end and sustain it all the way through. So it serves intensity, you could say, from the other side. Order does it beforehand proactively, constancy does it reactively, just keeping intensity going. So that's why order, intensity, constancy, those three things are what make up work. You could say the virtue of work consists in order, intensity, constancy. But this is just explaining that. That, by the way, comes from Aristotle. So, or more precisely, Aquinas' commentary on Aristotle's Ethics. So, in the last book, is where he talks about order, intensity, constancy.
Very interesting. So, how do these? We often talk about focus as coming from reframing mindfulness challenge. So, how do those fit into the picture? I mean, part of it is order and reframing are very connected. Mindfulness and intensity are very connected. Challenge and constancy in some ways as well. Um, so, how do you think about order leading to intensity versus kind of reframing mindfulness challenge leading to intensity?
Well, I would say that really, when you take reframing, mindfulness, and challenge and apply it to a task, they become order, intensity, constancy. That they're identical things. So, order is your view of what are you aiming for here. So, and then how am I going to be attaining it? But that's precisely what the reframe comes up with. You're applying your intelligence to the task beforehand. So your intelligence, which is where reframing takes place, is trying to see what's the best that can come out of this. In some sense, the reframe gives you this image of the koan, the image of some beautiful thing in this next activity that you can shape in advance. So that's the order proactively, trying to see what's the whole I'm trying to make here, and then what are the steps that I'm going to be using to attain it. So when it comes to mindfulness, well, what is mindfulness in like its neural signature? It's a state of theta locking where progressively large amounts of your cortex are all in tune and sync with each other, pulsing at exactly the same frequency, which happens to be a theta frequency. So we call that theta locking. But that same exact signature of the theta lock, of the brain all just humming in unison and working on one thing, is also what you see when people are unitasking, fully engaging one step at a time. So, in fact, intensity in work is the same exact thing in the brain as mindfulness. The thing with mindfulness is what's so nice about it is there's no steps. It's just one step. So if you're gonna be mindful of the breath, that's the only step you do, and you just stay engaged with it. So you're able with mindfulness practice to go progressively longer and longer on a step. So you can have just attending to your breath for like 30 seconds. No, I'm sorry, 30 minutes. So and you could go on and on and on with it, with the more practice you are. Uh, I think then the challenge, is precisely what constancy kind of is essentially, which is leaning in, and to the stretching yourself, until you've attained the final goal. So it's maintaining that sense of stretch towards the end. So, but also with challenge, when you're stretching yourself in a task, it means that there's resistance. It means that there are forces against it. And constancy that's precisely how you hold up to that resistance. So it still implies a sense of that you're able to withstand any resistance that might come, as you're kind of straining for the end. So I'm sure that if we were going to look and see what when people are really striving, like challenging themselves, to reach a certain goal where they have to go through resistance, I bet it's the same neural networks that you see in this the the Todd Braver paper, on dual mechanisms of control. It's the reactive one. It's that there are many forces for dispersion possibly there, and you're still maintaining a stretch towards this goal at the end. So I think that neurally they're all just identical to that. It's just when you're living reframing mindfulness challenge in one task, they just become order, intensity, constancy.
Yeah, it's interesting. We also talk about challenge, that there are in some way two senses to it. One is formulating the challenge, and that might be more part of order in this way. Whereas then executing on the challenge, actually carrying it out, is the part that's constancy.
Exactly. It's carrying it out until it's accomplished. And so really then any kind of work, what you're doing is you're taking some image you had of, of what would be the best to be brought out in this next period of time. Like, how can I best do that? And then you're making it real. And so you order kind of is the lay of the land. It's where you want to get to. It's like the mountaintop, but it's also then the path to get there. That is all the work of sight, seeing it in advance. That's your intelligence applied. But then you're going to need your attention fully engaged with the first step and then the next step and then the next step. And that's where intensity is engaging in the step and constancy is just keeping you on the right path, course correcting all the way to the end. And so now with this study, actually what it showed was distinct mechanisms that are involved, when in the brain, because they're looking at fMRIs as people are doing these things. And you are exercising a certain part of your frontal cortex, the lateral prefrontal cortex, when you are making a plan or thinking about, or at least um, knowing the plan, that there is a plan, of how to get through the task. Having the task pre-planned makes it much easier then to be fully engaged with it so order supports intensity.
That's very nice. So the next question that I have is about the relationship between mastery and intensity, because it seems to me that the more you've mastered your craft, like for me as a programmer, it's very easy to get into flow, to keep up my intensity when, as I developed. If I'm working in a new area, it's a little bit harder. I remember when I was just starting out, it was much more difficult. So it seems that's related to having a better, just kind of intuitive sense of what the next step is going to be, and maybe even to some extent, I've memorized what the steps are going to be of this particular task. So there seems to be a relationship between mastery, knowing what the proper steps should be, and then your ability to attain flow or maintain intensity.
Yeah, and that's all you can say, the fruit of constancy. That as you live constancy in the task, you are finding your path and successfully keeping on the right course until it's attained. When you attain it, it's very rewarding. It's like, okay, that worked. And that reward will actually seal in the path you took. And then that will feel more intuitive the next time you do it. And you keep refining if it's a task that you're repeating, then in essence, you don't even have to think about it. It just happens. As you get through the task and attain the end, that attainment of the end again solidifies, we made it. And it's recorded. Gradually, that's what we call mastery. So, mastery is that now you are really expert at getting through this task, and perhaps also knowing that if this happens, this is what I do. If this happens, this is what I do to stay on task. So mastery imply it's the fruit of constancy lived over time. Of if it goes a little bit off this way, this is how I get back. So it's like uh, it's like anyone could do a surgery if nothing ever went wrong. If it was, you could like read it, you could watch a YouTube video. But why you need surgeons who are masters of their craft is that in fact little things are always needing to be, you need to course correct in small ways. Not that's I'm exaggerating, but there's a truth there, which is the real master can handle permutations, and can course correct constantly and in a sense effortlessly. So mastery is just what happens with it's like constancy projected through time. That's it's a living constancy, and then it really does support intensity in a much deeper way because constancy gets easier and easier to live the more you've mastered something. You can also think of constancy as what happens using some of your task attention, but mastery is when it's become fully intuitive. So it just doesn't require really much attention anymore. You're able to kind of effortlessly navigate, through these steps.
That's right. So then the last question that I have is now kind of going even to the next level of ideals, because I think we often talk about ideals are working for high ideals are what give you the capacity to maintain kind of continuous flow or vital engagement. So then ideals they have to be very connected to intensity too. So I wonder if you could spell out the connection there.
Yeah, so that's a very deep question. Yeah, when I think of what it means to bring in ideals into a task, to me, what that means is a richer view of the end or the whole. So when I'm thinking of doing a task, I can think of doing it in terms of like there's something material that I'm trying to accomplish, to make something happen, to get something done. There's a certain quantity of work that I will do within that time. But then with ideals, it brings in this sense of something richer. And so it's still the same thing that's being accomplished, but now it's being accomplished in a richer way and in a more meaningful way. It also, I think there's something about, ideals are simply the framework of the whole of life versus just getting this one little thing right as in a part of my life. Doesn't seem to you that when you're thinking about ideals, you're thinking about the whole big picture of what kind of person do you want to become? And so and what do you want the end of your life to be like? Like, what is the end of your life? And ultimately, it's an image, I think, of you ideally at your very best. And so what version of you are you aiming for? Uh, that then I think gives the more like a sense of what kind of person do you want to be and how clear is that, the more that is in our minds, it gives more motivation and meaning to every little thing that we can apply it to. So if I deeply want to be someone, uh, that's loving and generous, and humble and sincere, and all these beautiful ideals, well, the task I'm doing right now can then be a small step towards becoming more humble, becoming more generous, giving myself totally in it, being more loving with the people I'm with, and really serving others. And so it just fits that task into a higher end. And in fact, then it borrows all of its motive from it. I don't know. Is that what you were thinking? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's right. That well, and I would also kind of be tying it into mastery and reframing. It seems to me that yeah, the more you see this task, the more you want to act according to your ideals, the easier it is to reframe the task according to your ideals, and that means forming, I guess, like what you said, forming an image of you at your best, which gives you the pattern for now how you're going to work through the task, how you're going to put order into the task. But like, yeah, well, I mean, one thing that gets people off track and prevents intensity is we talk about complaining, dreading, worrying. Uh, but having high ideals enables you to flip those around so that so that it removes an obstacle to intensity.
Yeah, I think that's right. That again, we always talk about the image of the Kalan, which is the beautiful, the noble. And if I think we need that Kalan for ourselves, what's the image of myself? Uh, and I know that just I feel like in my own life that as you go through progressive stages, that image in some sense gets refined. Like, what should I be stretching for? And it's not like watching a movie of oneself. It's just a kind of sense of, here's the kind of quality that I feel deeply moved to aim for. And so it might be um, a more total availability to people. And so okay, and that's really I can't say it's like a physical image in my mind, like an imagine, but certainly there's a feeling I have when I think of that, or just carrying a total interior silence within me, so that I feel the sense of inner peace and gravity. Um, well, those things to me are very yeah. It's hard to put them into words because it's not like a painted image in my mind, in my imagination, but it certainly is an intellectual vision of what that means. I think when we're talking about this, it really is an intellectual vision of some good that right now we feel this is what I'm called to attain. This is what I'm called to strive for. I don't know if we can even assess how much we attain those things, but certainly we can assess how much we're desiring them. And maybe it's our desire for this best version of ourselves that actually is like tells us, are we living constancy in the whole of our life? Like if we don't really have a strong desire to be the best version of ourselves, then we how do we know if we're on track or off track? So it's like and it seems like those things have to be more important than just some particular step I'm on.
Right. Yeah. And then it occurs to me that there's, at any given point when you're working on something, there can be kind of two levels that you're thinking about. If you've put order into a task, so you've broken it down and you have, okay, I'm working on step 3 right now. But at the same time, you're also trying to live an ideal. So the question is, like, where does the intensity come from? Does it come from applying your mind fully to the step, or from applying your mind fully to living that ideal? I mean, it's both.
I think it is, yeah. Yeah, and in some ways, right brain, left brain. So that, that the right brain is contributing part to maintaining intensity, and it does that by having this vision of the whole, and which is going to be the bonds and, and ideals. And left brain contributes it by having an image of the steps necessary, the breaking down of steps and mastery, and what it means to then successfully accomplish things in this task. And so I think both the left and the right brain come together, they're united, in the actual moment of intensity. And so partly being served by the steps of the left brain and partly being served by the end in mind, the motivational force of the right brain.
That's a great insight. That's really cool. Great. Well, Kevin, I mean, that's all we have in terms of time. So I don't know if you have any final thoughts you want to add.
Well, it does just make me think that there is something about total intensity in work that's integrating and unifying and like making peace. It's like, so really when we work at our best, the left brain and the right brain are like meeting and like joining hands right in our prefrontal cortex. So, and there's a kind of peace there. And probably, I mean, it's true for how, your task attention, default attention are working together as well. Um, so that's why I think that there is something about intensity in work, which actually is a very vibrant piece. Yeah, and that's true neurally, and it's true emotionally, and it's true attentionally. But our attention, everything at us can be deeply at peace in that. Um, and so, and then that I think is actually, um, simultaneously how we have full energy and fight the forces of dissipation and brain fog in the task that we're doing.
Well, that's great. Great. Great way to finish. Thanks
Thank,
so much,
thank you,
Kevin.
Sharif.
All right. We'll be back next week.